Welcome back to another video. So if you're a regular viewer of my channel, today is going to be not a retro computing episode, but we're going to be looking at a modern computer. So maybe you want to skip this one, and that's totally fine. My friend asked me to take a look at his MSI GS66 Stealth, which has a keyboard where two of its keys don't work. And I thought it would be good to record the process and put it on YouTube, so if anybody else with an MSI laptop that has this kind of keyboard is able to have a guide for how to replace it. So normally replacing keyboards is pretty simple. They're just one component, they chunk out, you plug them in, and it's super simple. MSI has decided that that's not how they wanted to do keyboards. It's quite a pain, but it is completely doable. So follow along on the guide here, and if you have a MSI laptop that has the keyboard that is integrated into the deck, hopefully this video will be the exact thing you need to get yours replaced. All right, so to start getting into the system, you need to take all the screws out of the bottom. There's 4 on each side, as well as 1 in the center here. This one is a shorter one than the other 8. So if you wanted to put all these together in a bag, you can label it case. Little one is front middle. So once you get the screws out, you'll need to get something in between the case and the bottom of it here, like a guitar pick or a credit card, and you'll want to pick the front up and go around the sides and then lift the front up and pull it forward because there are hooks on the back here. So don't start in the back, start in the front, lift it up. All right, so let's get the case apart and then we can talk about the internals. All right, for taking the battery out, there's 3 screws. There's one here, and one here. And then there's this little tab you can use to lift the battery out. And of course, you'll need to unplug the cable as well. So you just pull the cable out to unplug it, and you can take the screws out. I like to put those into a bag, battery and SSD. The 3 battery screws are all the same length. The SSD is the short one. So if you wanted to share those, that would be pretty easy to do that as well. All right, and if you have 2 SSDs installed, if you have this one installed on the right here, you need to take it out because there is a screw underneath it that you need to take out to get the board out. So just take the screw out and then take the SSD out. All right, so next we need to take some screws out. So we have a screw here, a screw here, a screw here, a screw here. These 2 short ones, screw here, screw here, screw here, and screw here with a little plastic disc that sits underneath it. So that should be it. So let's take all those out and then we can get the heatsink and fan assembly off. And I like to put all my screws into a bag that I've labeled board so I know where they go. If you have like a mod mat from Gamers Nexus, you can put them in the correct place, but these screws are all the same, except for the 2 in the middle here are the short ones. So it's pretty easy to not get those mixed up. And then, of course, you got the plastic piece you need to keep as well. All right, so with all the screws out, now we'll need to take the connections off the board. But first, you might want to take the heatsink fan assembly out. To do that, there is a bunch of heatsink compound holding a lot of these components down, so you might have to use a little bit of force, but it should just kind of pop straight up. And then you can see we've got 1 fan connection on this side that needs to come out and 2 on this side that need to come out. So just unplug those, and then that is our heatsink / fan assembly. So you want to be careful not to touch any of the thermal compound because you don't want any grease or your fingerprints or any dust in there. So try to keep that as clean as possible and take any hair out if you get hair in there. All right, so with the heatsink off, we need to remove a few wires. Now we need to be very careful doing this because they're connected with little plastic clips that break very easily. So we have this one that needs to come off. So there's a there's a white plastic clip that goes up. So flip it up this way and then pull the cable out. You need to take off your 2 Wi-Fi antennas, or if you prefer, you can take the Wi-Fi card out. I'll be taking the antennas off. That's just a little bit easier for me. We need to disconnect the speakers here. We need to disconnect the video cable. And again, this has a plastic tab that goes up. And this one is black and it opens up and then the cable comes out. Be careful, this one is stuck to the board with sticky adhesive, so lift it up very carefully. We need to disconnect the camera, which is here. And then we have this keyboard connection here to the motherboard. And then on the bottom side, there is another keyboard connection. So you'll lift the board up and flip it onto its face, and then you can disconnect this keyboard here as well. All right, so once we get the board off, now comes the tricky part. So the keyboard is just made of flimsy plastic, and what supports it, there's a metal tray that it sits on that gives the deck the support you need to be able to type on it. And this metal piece is held in by these little melted studs here. So during installation at the factory, these little pegs are sticking up, the tray sits down, and then they melt them to hold it in place. So they're melted, and it makes repair very difficult to do easily, but not impossible. We'll get it done. So there's really two approaches you can do to this. You can either go through and snip all of these off, or you can use something like a hot air rework station or a heat gun to try to melt them and soften them up, and then make them fit through the hole, and then you can lift this metal deck off. I guess the other option is you can take a screwdriver and just kind of start, going in there and prying the tray up, and I wouldn't recommend that approach, but if that's all you've got, that will work as well. So to do that, the first thing we need to do is to take this sticker off the back here, because there are a bunch of tabs hidden underneath it. So we'll carefully and slowly lift this up. If you have trouble with this part, you might want to use a heat gun for this as well. And we will peel the old keyboard cable off the sticker here. If you rip it, not a big deal since it's attached to the keyboard and the replacement does come with this one. However, this one, it does not come with a replacement, so be careful over on the second one. But ideally, you can pick it up without ripping it. Again, not that it matters. And then for this one, we can open this tab here and just remove this cable very carefully. This is the one we don't want to rip, and that just comes right out. So we'll set this off to the side. We'll need this for the new keyboard. All right, so as we continue to remove this sticker, so we'll probably be reapplying this. You want to try to be careful with it, because this can be used as, or I think it's used to shield the system board from shorting out on this metal tray. But it's not going to be easy to reuse this one, and I don't know if they make replacements of this or not. It's a little unfortunate, but yeah, these laptops were not made to be easily repairable, at least not the keyboard. All right, so we've got the sticker off. We'll set that off to the side, and we'll see what we can do with that. So now you can see there is a ton of these little tabs all around this board, as well as this grounding foil here, which will peel up. I'll just set that off to the side as well. So now comes the decision, how do you want to do this? So if you wanted to try to melt these and reform them into little pegs, you can do that, but that is going to be super time consuming and very difficult. I think what I would recommend, and we got another foil ground strip here as well, take that off. So what I'd recommend is taking a pair of small side cutters and then just trying to cut them off as best as you can. So they should come off fairly easy if you have a pair of side cutters. If you don't, you could also use a razor blade, and you could try to slice them off that way. It'll work just as well. It's just going to take you a little bit longer than with side cutters. But as you can see, those come off just as easily there. All right, so let me go through and cut all these off, and then we'll get back to the next step. All right, so I think I got them all. Probably missed one somewhere. Yeah, I missed one here. Yeah, I probably missed another one because there's so many. But you can see like this one here, we didn't quite get the whole thing, so that's going to be a little hard to pull it out. It looks like there's one here. There's just so many on this thing. I think this is one. Not really sure. So now that we've got most of those off, we can start to lift the metal tray up and see where it's stuck. So over here now, there's two that I missed. So I'm getting resistance lifting the tray on this side, so I know that's a couple that I missed. Keep going, I'm getting resistance now Here are a couple little tiny ones. And I'm getting resistance, I think, on this one and this one. All right, I'm missing one here, it feels like. All right. And so it is taped on here on this side as well. So we can just lift this tape up. All right, and then we can remove the metal deck stabilizer, I guess is what you'd call it. And then with that out of the way, the keyboard should just pop right out. All right, so here's our old keyboard. Recycle it, don't just throw it out, take it to your local electronics recycler. And now we can place our new keyboard in here. What I'm gonna do first, I don't know if you can see this machine's a little dirty. It's been some hair and buildup in there, so I'm just gonna take it, open it up, and just clean it out really quickly. And that'll also get the rest of these stupid little plastic tabs that are all over my workspace out as well. So I'll clean those off. All right, so we got most of it. There's still a little bit of hair in here, but that's all right. The hair is from a very friendly dog. No worries. So we can take our new keyboard and just drop it into place here. And we'll want to push it down because it's going to go through those pegs that we had been cutting off, at least around the edges. So now you can see here it's sticking up. It's not quite fitting through those pegs. So I got to give it a little bit of extra force, and maybe in this case we'll want to cut this tab off just a little bit more because we didn't get enough of it. But ideally, you don't want to cut any more of these off because these are going to hold the keyboard where it needs to be. All right, so it looks like we're good. Everything is lined up and fitting correctly. I'll make sure there's nothing on top of this. And now we can take our metal bracket and put it back in place. All right, so it lines up with the pegs as well. So if you look through, you can see from the top where the pegs used to be, and they kind of still will click in because there's enough of them left where you can kind of get them through, and some of them will click through and some of them won't, but that's okay. Now, if you're not in possession of a soldering iron or a heat gun, you can proceed with the rest of the assembly. Your keyboard probably going to be a little loose, but I think some things do screw into it, and it will still provide some stiffness to your keyboard, so you're not in the worst shape. But what I'm going to do now is take my soldering iron and just go through each one of these pegs and just kind of melt it a little bit more so that it re-grips the backing plate here. So you can see that I'm kind of making a hole in the middle, and then the plastic is oozing up around it, and that's going to hold it in place. So I'm going to go through and do a bunch of these. We don't necessarily need to get all of them. I think they went a little overboard with some of these. Not some of these, but the number of these they have on here seems a little crazy, but hey, what do I know? I'm not a laptop manufacturer. Just going through and getting all the ones I can see here. Some people might say this is bad for the tip of your iron, and they're probably not wrong, but doing this once in a while isn't going to hurt it too much. Plus, tips are pretty cheap. I'm going to skip those really tiny ones because my soldering iron is not going to fit in those holes. I am applying downward pressure with my left hand here as I do this to kind of hold the backing plate where I need it to be while I'm melting these. Otherwise, if we don't apply pressure, it's going to be away from the board or away from the backing plate. And this is going to be like a kind of like a once you change the keyboard, you're probably not going to be changing it again kind of deal. Because now we've gone through and used up what little bit of plastic was left this time. So next time, if we had to do this again, it would be really difficult to find enough plastic to melt to hold the keyboard backing plate down. All right, I know we didn't get them all, but I think we got enough. I feel like this is going to be held in here pretty well. So I'm going to clean the tip of my soldering iron off, get the rest of that plastic off. And now we're ready for reassembly. So yeah, this feels like it's pretty secure. I'm not going to really test it too much because it's not as secure as it was from the factory, but it will do the job, no worries. All right, so now the fun part of trying to reinstall this shield, whatever it may be called. It's got a bit of adhesion left, but it's not in the best shape. So we'll try our best to get it stuck on as much as possible. Once we get the board sandwiched in there and the rest of the components installed, it should be okay. They'll kind of just hold it in place. So I don't know the best way to do this. I guess line up a hole on each side and work either towards the camera or left to right. So there's going to be some areas that it's a really tight fit is what I'm saying. So you're going to have a little bit of trouble trying to get it around all of these pegs and all these different standoffs that are in here. But I think that's pretty good. We do have a wrinkle here, which we don't want. We do want it to be flat. All right, I think that's about as flat as it's going to be. All right, so given that, we can now reinstall this cable. All right, so you pull the tab out and up, and then you can insert the cable and then pull the tab down to lock it into place. Now this cable has adhesive on the back, so now it's stuck to the deck plate again as well. The new keyboard comes with an adhesive back on it already, so we don't have to reuse any adhesive here, which is nice. So we'll peel off the protective layer there, and then we'll just fold this over and adhere it to the deck as well. All right, so that's our new keyboard and our old keyboard cable here. All right, so I think the easiest way to do this is to turn the board around now. We want to plug this keyboard cable in to the slot where it needs to go. All right, so with the board upside down, we can take this connector and it goes into the back side of this little slot here. Let me make sure everything's lined up. And then we can close the door to keep it in place. Give it a little tug, not too much of a tug, just to make sure that it's in there seated properly. And that little pull indicates that it's good. So now we can flip the board back over and we can go back to the rest of the reassembly. All right, so with the keyboard connected, now we can insert this other half of the connector and close that tab as well. All right, now we should be able to seat the board where it needs to go. I'm gonna make sure that we're not stuck on anything. And then the case kind of needs to flex a little bit to get the ports back in on both sides. So we'll do this side first, get those ports where they need to go. And then on this side, we can flex the case a little bit, which is good. And then we'll flex the board a little bit, which is not as good, but that just kind of snaps back in there then. So make sure everything is down. Again, don't touch anything that's got the paste on it, if at all possible. And now we can proceed with hooking the rest of our things up. So we'll hook this up next. I think this might be speakers. Oh, this is the camera. And then push it in and close the tab. Again, give it a little pull, make sure it's in there nice and firmly. We'll reconnect this wire next. This one is the speakers. And then we can reconnect this one. This one slides in here. So lift the white tab up this way and then push the cable in until you get to the black line. And then close the little tab. I'll give it a little pull, make sure that it's in there nice and tight, and it is. All right, and then we need to reconnect the wires to our Wi-Fi card. Don't worry if you struggle with this. These little tiny connectors are some of the worst connectors in computing to hook up to anything. But we got them pretty quickly there. And we'll just want to make sure this is away from where the heat sinks are going to go. So tuck it underneath, I think, is where it goes. Then we'll reconnect the video. So we'll flip the tab up, the black tab. And then we'll insert that. And then we'll close the black tab. And again, give a little pull, make sure it's tight, and then this one adheres to the deck as well. So next we can reinstall the heatsink and fan assembly. All right, so I'm just going to clean the old heatsink compound off of these ICs. It's not in terrible shape, but since we're in here, let's go ahead and re-putty it anyway. So I'm just using 99% IPA, isopropyl alcohol or isopropanol. You can use less concentrated form if that's all you have. I think Walgreens maybe only sells up to 70%. You can get 99% on Amazon. All right, so we'll get those fairly clean. They don't need to be perfect. And then we'll also want to clean the heatsink, where the heatsink goes, on the fan heatsink assembly as well. And there's not too much on this one, so let's kind of clean it off. So now I'm going to apply some new heatsink. I'm using Thermal Grizzly. I think this is Krynot. And everybody online has a different opinion of how much heatsink paste you need to put on a chip. So I'm not going to tell you what to do here. And if you'd like to judge me, feel free. The one thing I will tell you, though, is if you're going to make multiple applications instead of just one, don't leave any place where there could be a bubble. So don't put a dab here, and a dab here, and a dab here, and a dab here. When you press down, they're all going to expand in, and it's going to trap air in the middle. And that's bad. So that's the only advice I'll give, but you do what you do, put some heatsink compound on, and be happy with what you got. So I'm going to take my Wi-Fi cables, tuck them under the board here, I believe is where they need to go, and then we can apply the fan / heatsink. We'll need to plug the 3 fans back in, so we've got one on this side that goes here, one on the same side that goes here, and then one on this side that goes over here. All right, and then we can lift this out of the way, and that should set down nicely. I need to pull these wires out of the way. All right, that looks pretty good to me. There we go. Get all those wires out of the way. So now we just need to screw everything back in. We've got our board screws. So this is going to be everything that we need to put back into the board. All right, so that's all of the screws in. So now we can reinstall the battery and the SSD. All right, so installing the SSD, pretty easy. Push it into the slot, lay it down, and then we'll get our screw out for that. All right, now we can reinstall the battery. You want to inspect it to make sure that it's not bulging. If it is, replace it, but this one looks like it's in very good shape. So it just drops back down into its slot. I'm not going to plug it in until after I get it screwed down because we don't want to short anything out by accident. And then we can reconnect the battery and tuck that wire in underneath here. All right, so with everything reassembled except for the bottom case, I'm ready to give this a try to see if A, this machine still works at all, and B, if the keyboard works. So we'll take our power brick, plug that into the mains, and then we'll take our power supply and plug that into the system. And then let's go ahead and hit the power button and see what happens. All right, well, the light came on. It flashed to orange briefly. It's a good sign. All right, and our rainbow keyboard is rainbowing. That's a good sign. That means our keyboard's hooked up correctly. Well, at least half of it, because it's got one for the data and I think one for the LEDs, for the RGB LEDs. There we go. Using the camera to try to see me, which is good, but it can't. So let's, I don't remember the password for this one. So let's change this to, and the mouse is working, that's good. Change the password, and we'll push Q and W, and those keys now work. So just typing all the keys here, seems like everything's working. So that is a really good sign. All right, so I'm gonna shut it down. And now we can reinstall the bottom panel. Take the bottom with the grill and kind of slide that into position and then lay the rest down So if you do that, that should get us most of the way in. And then we can get all the rest of those clips clipped in. Like so. All right, and then we'll take our screws and we'll get this screwed back in. So remember, the only one that's different, the short one, goes in the front middle. And that's it. We've got everything back together. All right, and with everything back together, let's give it one more boot, make sure everything is still good. And then we can get this guy back to its owner. We'll switch again to password, make sure our keyboard is working, and that looks good. And we'll just unplug it then, make sure the battery's good. And it is. So we'll call this one done. I think everything's good. Thanks for watching. Hopefully you can repair your keyboard in your GS66 Stealth as well. It's a bit tricky, but as you can see, it's not completely undoable. Thanks for watching, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.
Hi guys! Make sure to like and subscribe, and watch more of our videos later. Bye!